Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Harrison, and I'm the field coordinator with Western Michigan University School of Social Work at the Kalamazoo campus. And I want to talk to all of my fellow faculty members today about Intern Placement Tracking, or IPT, and a specific training for Faculty Liaisons. Intern Placement Tracking is the most widely used social work education, field education software system throughout the U.S. It was designed by the spouse of the field instructor at Brigham Young University, and it's a really cool, secure server-based field education software program. All right, so we're going to be talking about a variety of things in the webinar today that are listed here. Everything from how to view field instructors, field students, field organizations, student field assignments, how you'll sign off or comment on forms, uploading documents, and then information about how to get a hold of different members of our field education team if you need troubleshooting. So Intern Placement Tracking, or IPT, is a web-based software that now allows students, field instructors, faculty liaisons, and the field office to coordinate and communicate through a web-based structure that's available anytime you have access to the web, and works from the point of student field application to field consideration by agencies to placement, and then from the beginning of field to the end of field. Please note that even though it's a web-based system, it's also a secure server, password-protected system. So only those users that receive login information from Western Michigan University's Field Education Office can access any part of IPT. For example, to view FERPA-protected information. And even then, the access that you have is limited based upon your assigned roles and permissions. So students have certain permissions, as do field instructors, as do you as faculty liaisons. But of course, faculty liaisons have administrative positions so that you can see more information about the students enrolled in your class, as well as the variety of field agencies. So let's get started. To log on to IPT, you'll go to the website, which is www.runipt.com. We recommend that you bookmark this website for later use. And then the first time you log in, you'll be logging in based upon a username and initial password that we send to you, which you'll change after your first use to a username and password of your selection. The organizational name for IPT is always WMICH, W-M-I-C-H, all in lowercase. Then we'll send you a username, which is an alphanumeric combination, for your first login. Then, like we said, you can change your username to whatever you wish. It might be easiest to change your username to your WMICH email address. Then you'll change your password, which on your first use is IPT, all lowercase, to something that you want it to be. It needs to be at least 4 characters, and it is case sensitive. If you would like your password for IPT to be the same as your GoToBMU password, that's fine. Or if you want it to be SnazzyCat2000, that's okay too. If you have trouble logging in, please contact our field office. And probably the easiest way to do that is by either emailing or calling on the telephone Erica Ongstead at erica.e.ongstead@wmich.edu, or by phone at 269-387-3201. If you ever lose your username or password, then we've got this handy-dandy forget your username or password button that you'll select. And once you select that, you'll be taken to this screen down on the bottom left, and you'll enter the information. So your organizational ID, which is WMICH, and then this drop-down box, which will allow you to tell us your user type, which is faculty or administrator in this case. And then you'll type in your email address and submit it, and the system will automatically send you a one-time use username and password so that you can reset your username and password. Keep in mind that because of the securities of this system, no one in the field office, no one except for you, knows what your username and password is at any time. So this really strengthens the security features so that no one else can access the system as you, except for you yourself, or anyone that you give your username and password to, which is of course a reason not to give your username and password to anyone. When you are at your IPT homepage, you'll know that you're at your homepage because it's Western Michigan University at the top, and then you'll be logged in under your name and then your category, which will be faculty or administrator in this case. So this is what my homepage looks like logged in as field director. Then you'll have these tabs at the top and then tabs to the left. So on the top, or on the left-hand side, you'll see My Forms. The important ones for you are Send Group Emails and Change My Password. The Change My Password enables you to change your password at any time. So if, for instance, your password is the same as your GoWMU password and that is set to expire and you want to change it, you can change your IPT password to match. Or if you wanted an even cooler password like Snazzycat 4000, then you could change that at any time as well. Across the top tabs are your Home tab, which always leads you back to this particular tab, your Field Organization list, your Field Instructor list, and your Student list. Those are the important ones. There's also a Group list and a Reports button that you won't use much, but you certainly can. And the Reports tab is what we'll use to do to generate our reports for the Council of Social Work Education. First, let's talk about sending a group email to students or field instructors. So if you click on the Send a Group Email on the left-hand tab, what you can do is select the individuals to receive an email. So for example, you can select different types of field instructors that are for students that are assigned to you, or field agencies, because in some cases the field agency contact is actually someone different than the field instructor. You want to select the semester, the groups that you would like to send your message to. So for instance, in this example, I'm sending the email to Kalamazoo MSW Foundation students, only those students that I am a faculty liaison for. Okay, and then you just include the information and the message, and then at the bottom there'll be a send link, and it'll be sent out from your WMISH email address. So that's the only address that students students or field instructors can reply to. It will go out to whatever email address is linked to their account on the system. And this does not allow students to reply all, so like to reply to their whole class, for instance. If they reply, they'll just be replying to your WMISH email address. And this basically sends the email outside of the IPT system. So it sends it to the WMISH, and it'll send you a copy of the email that you sent. So this is a really nice way to communicate upcoming deadlines, events, schedule field visits, etc., through IPT, but then it goes to whatever email address is listed for the person on the system. All right, let's look at the field organization list. So if you go to the second tab from your Home tab, which is Field Organization List, there's an A through Z list of all the field agencies that have available field placements or have a student placed in them currently. So you can go through that and you can click on a couple of letters, you can, once you click on a particular agency, like in this case I've clicked on a test agency, then it'll link you to that agency's page, and you'll see all of the information that that agency has given to Western Michigan University about themselves as a field placement. It has the affiliation agreement, the field instructors, the different types of students they accept, can have a link to their website, they can upload their brochure, etc., etc. In addition, you can also look by field instructors. So if you're looking for a particular field instructor, say in this case we're looking for, it's the same A through Z list, we're looking for A-Test Jane, then once we click on A-Test Jane, you'll see all the information that Jane has listed, has listed in her file. So the address and the contact information and the cell phone number, and whether they're an active field instructor or an inactive field instructor, all kinds of information about when they receive different licenses and certifications, when they receive their degree, and you can even see that Jane can upload a picture here. Finally, let's look at our student list, which of course operates exactly the same way, A through Z. So you'll see here that there's student last name and first name, and you can also sort if you just want to see the students whose last names begin with LMN, for instance, and then it shows what cohort they are being served under. Then if you click on a particular student, you see that all the information that that student has uploaded to the system. So street address name, birth date, their faculty liaison, which will probably be you in this case, the degree that they're receiving, either BSW or MSW, their prospective graduation date, and then all of the information about their field application. So you can actually click on and view their resume, their written narrative, if they have uploaded a specialty field placement like an employment-based or a continuation placement proposal. If they have a criminal history statement that they've uploaded, you can see all of that. And our field instructors will also be able to see that once we send them a particular student for review. You can also see that students can upload a photo of themselves as well. And you'll notice that this student, A-Test student, is one of the super fabulous social and economic justice honey badgers who are not afraid of anything. If you go down to the bottom of the student view, you'll be able to view all of the placements that they've had since we started using IPT, which is starting in the fall of 2014. So the field assignments are made by the field coordinators, and field assignment lists where students are placed by semester. And it also lists the contact information for that student. So you'll see here that A-Test student is placed at A-Test agency with field instructor A-Test Jane, and that this is her phone number and email. If students have a secondary field instructor in addition to their primary field instructor, then there'll be a second line here under fall 2014 that lists the contact information for the secondary field instructor. This is just a handy way to kind of like double check and view. You can also, if for instance you're going out to a field visit and you need to make a call or need to double check on the address for a field agency, you can actually go to this page on a laptop or on a tablet. You can do it on a smartphone, but it doesn't look quite as nifty on a smartphone. But if you're just looking for a phone number or address, then you could certainly do that on a smartphone as well. If there is something about a student's field assignments that looks incorrect to you, please let us know if there's something we need to fix. All right, so that's all of the information that you're going to be viewing. Now I want to talk about the information that you're going to be completing in terms of forms. So if you're back at your home page and you are looking at the My Forms, these are all the forms for all the different students that you have that you'll be reviewing or signing off on. So the forms that Faculty Liaisons will view, but view only, they don't have to, they can just look at them for completeness, are the time logs and the safety and orientation checklists. And the forms that Faculty Liaisons will be assisting in the completion of, even though those are still student-driven forms, are the development of the learning contracts, and also they'll be viewing the information about the learning contract evaluations. All right, so when you're at your home page, again, if you go on, click on the My Forms button, then you'll get to your forms for different students. You'll notice this parentheses to the right-hand side of My Forms. That shows that in this particular Faculty Liaison's case, they have one form ready for their review. All right, so once you click on the forms, then you'll have all of your students who have begun their forms, and you'll be able to view any forms that they've started. So let's talk about the 3 basic forms within the field placement. There is the time log. So on this time log, which again the student will begin, and then the field instructor, signs off on, and then you as the faculty liaison can view, but don't actually have to contribute to this form. So the student puts their information up the top, and then to add a date that they were in field, they just click on this plus button. After they click on the plus button, they'll enter the date, and then they'll do a check mark on the different competencies that they were working on that date. So in this particular case, this student was working on competency number 1, professional social work, and competency number 3, critical thinking, on this particular date in field. This is a really handy way for students, field instructors, and you as a faculty liaison to be able to see if there are any competencies that the students aren't spending any time working on throughout the course of a semester or field placement, which would indicate that they may not be addressing those areas in their learning contract. Then if the student goes to the next bar, and you'll see this edit button, which allows them to click on it and to input some of the basics about the tasks that they were completing that day. So on this day, 8:15, the student was working on orientation and safety training, and they had a start time of 8 o'clock, which is in 24-hour time format, at an end time of 1500 or 5 p.m. Then the system will auto-calculate the number of hours and then the total number of hours. So you see down below here on the second day that the student added 2 hours and the system auto-calculated that they had now completed 11 hours. You'll notice this field instructor initial line is not active for the student login, but when the field instructor logs in, they can sign off on that they agree or confirm that these are the correct hours that the student was in field placement. Notice before when we had our time logs that we had field instructors initial, but it was never, I don't imagine that a student would be dishonest about this, but we were never really sure whether the field instructor actually initialed it or someone else did. This system will allow only the field instructor through their login can authorize the student hours. Also, the tasks and activities are really important for the field instructor because, once the student is past the first few weeks of field, when they're typically following or shadowing their field instructor around, they start to do increasingly independent activities. So this allows the field instructor to be able to look at the activities and tasks that the student is doing and recognize that and also kind of map that back to the learning contract to help with the evaluation. Now let's move to the orientation and safety checklist. Again, this is a student begun form, and the student puts the information about themselves at the top and then simply clicks on each drop-down box to say that they either reviewed or it was not applicable for each item under the background check process. Other than that, this looks like our existing safety and orientation checklist. At the bottom of each form are signature lines which allow the student and the field instructor to electronically sign each document. They'll do this by clicking to sign the completed document. Let's talk about that signing the completed document. Once the student or the field instructor sign either the time log or the safety and orientation checklist, a date timestamp is applied, and then the forms are locked for that user to add any additional information to. So typically, the safety and orientation checklist will be signed as soon as it's completed, but the time log will only be signed once per semester. If for some reason a student or faculty instructor or field instructor sign a form and they didn't mean to because they've still got edits to make on it, they can let us know and we can administratively unsign the form. All right, now let's talk about the learning contract, which, as you know, is really the crux of field education. So again, the students will begin this form, which essentially looks like our existing learning contracts, but are much smoother and cooler in terms of the features that the system allows. Student will input information about themselves, their primary and secondary field instructor, and their faculty liaison, and then they'll also check on this drop-down for the cohort that they are in. So the options are BSW, MSW Foundation, MSW IP Concentration, or MSW PPNA Concentration. And actually only a particular learning contract, because remember the learning contracts are different because each learning contract has different practice behaviors. So the MSW Foundation and BSW have all 41 practice behaviors, and then the IP and PPNA Concentration learning contracts have only the 14 advanced macro or micro practice behaviors in them. So that'll help populate the learning contract. Then each student will go down and under each competency, like competency number 1, identify as a professional social worker and conduct oneself accordingly, there'll be a list of the practice behaviors. This practice behavior 1 is advocate for client access to services of social work. And then the student will be able to, through this, again, this edit icon, the paper and pencil icon, write what activities or products they're going to do. So we want those activities and products to be SMART goals. So they're specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time limited to the time of the placement. We also want them to have the right amount of specificity and to apply to Bloom's taxonomy in terms of the levels of learning and from describing all the way to analysis and synthesis that students will do at different levels while they're in field. Once something has been added to this activities or products line, then the date added will automatically update. Now, at any point, you as a faculty liaison, the student, or the field instructor can go in and continue to edit these activities or products. So say the student wrote, I'll advocate for children at my agency so that they receive the best possible placement in foster care. and you said, well, wait, you know, you're working primarily in adoption services, so let's change that to adoption services. You could go and delete foster care and write adoption services. And then anytime anyone makes a change on this activity or product, the date added updates. So this allows the learning contract to be a really nice, evolving, and living document, which we've always wanted it to be, but it's hard to be with the paper form because it starts to look really messy if it's done on the paper form and you're really doing it right. So you'll see the next column is date completed, where the student or the field instructor can add the date completed to any particular activity. Some activities are completed in a fairly finite nature, that once the report is done or the training is done or whatever, then that activity is completed. Others are more ongoing. Then you'll see that there's room for a student self-assessment at the end of the first and the second semester. So this is me signed in as a student, and so there's this drop-down box where they can list from 1 unacceptable progress to 5 advanced competence. And then there's also room for the field instructor to assess the same. Below each competency is a narrative response section at the end of the first and the second semester for the field instructor to complete. One of the things that we've been careful to describe to students is that if they are receiving any 1s or more than a few 2s, that should not come as a surprise to them, and that's absolutely, especially 1s, are really an internship jeopardy situation. So that should be something that they're actively coordinating with you and their field instructor to develop a plan to address those concerns. Likewise, if students are receiving all 5s, particularly at the end of the first semester, then that is the best their field instructor can possibly imagine them being. So that's great, but one of the things that we'll need to do as faculty liaisons is to really ask students to kick it up a notch in second semester, because they've already achieved at an advanced competence level the specific activities that they added for each practice behavior. Just as a reminder, we ask that students, we are hoping that students are achieving a mean by competency of 3 at the end of the first semester, indicating emerging competence. And that will be our marker of, we'll report the percentage of students who achieve at least a mean of 3 by competency to CSWE, and at the end of the second semester, at least a mean of 4. So what that means is a 3 is not a C, and a 4 is not a B for our high achieving students. Like the time log and safety and orientation checklist, there's a spot for all of the different parties, including yourself as the faculty liaison, to sign off on these forms. And you'll do that by, at your login, clicking on the blue, which says, you know, you're signing this form. So as a faculty liaison, Mary Ellen Sartoris is the faculty liaison in this test student case. So then she would have learning contract signature. There's 4 signature lines at the beginning, or when the learning contract is created in the first semester, at the first semester evaluation, at the beginning of the second semester, and at the second semester evaluation. Unlike the time log and safety and orientation checklist, when these forms are signed at the first 3 points, they do not lock for editing. So they are open for editing by all 3 users based upon their permissions throughout the field placement. The only time that the learning contract and evaluation locks for editing is at the end of the second semester, when the second semester evaluation is complete. Making a comment. Let's say you'd like to communicate to the field team about concerns that you have in regards to a particular student or a particular field instructor or field organization sometime throughout the semester. Comments can be made about students' progress, and they are listed under the student list. So if I go to a test students file under their student list, then there's a comment section, and I can put in comments that only yourself, as only the administrative users, which are only faculty liaisons, and the field team can see. So this is, if we're going about a problem-solving process, this is a good place to add comments with just, 9/19/2014, met with student for field visit, discussed concerns about secondary field instruction availability, developed a plan with primary and secondary field instructor, JH, as comments that you might put. And don't feel like this should limit you to only making comments with an IPT. Feel free to contact your field coordinators or field office by phone or email at any time, whichever is most convenient for you. Uploading documents. So students and field instructors and field organizations will be uploading documents at different points. This is, for instance, where students will be uploading their resume and narrative responses as part of their field application. So when they click on this paper and pen icon, then they'll go to an uploaded document and they can browse their computer to upload their resume, for instance. The only reason that I'm showing this to you, and once that resume is uploaded, there'll be this view button. So the reason I'm showing this to you is that IPT is really nimble in terms of there can be a variety of placeholders for different documents that we add to the system. So say, for instance, you wanted all IP concentration field students to need to upload a process recording, or you wanted your advocacy assignment for the students to upload into IPT. We can create those placeholders for you. Final notes on IPT. We know that none of your WMISH emails are going to your junk email folder since you're faculty liaisons at Western Michigan University, so I'm not worried about that. As we're implementing IPT, there'll be ideas and suggestions that you have about how to make the system better. Please bring those forward because we really want the system to grow and learn and change to meet our needs as the School of Social Work Field Education Department at Western Michigan University. So tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly, whatever you feel like we need to know to make the system better. A bunch of folks worked on IPT over the summer and continue to do so on our implementation team, including undergraduate student Ashton Hilton, graduate students LaShawna Jones and Kristen Burns, staff member Erica Ongstead, and the field coordinators at the 3 different campuses. And this, as you know, is how to get hold of each of us throughout the year and anytime. Thanks so much for listening to the webinar, and please feel free to contact any one of us if you have any questions or concerns about IPT, about field education in general, or about the best movies out there to see at your local theater. Thanks again.